So what exactly lit the fuse on one of the most explosive events in world history? In this explainer, we're going to trace the origins of the French Revolution, all the way from a simmering kingdom to a raging inferno. Let's get into it.
And we're going to jump right into the middle of the action, onto the streets of Paris as they are literally bursting into flame.
Okay, so picture this. The date is July 14th, 1789. This right here is the Bastille. It's this medieval fortress/prison that everyone saw as a symbol of the king's absolute power. And on this day, an angry mob, thousands of people, has swarmed it, desperate to find weapons and gunpowder.
To put it simply, the city was in a total panic. Rumors were flying everywhere that King Louis XVI was about to order his army to march in and just open fire on everyone. The tension was absolutely at a breaking point.
A fortress under siege, a city completely on the edge. It all leads to the one big question that's going to drive this whole explainer. How on earth did things get this bad? To find the answer, well, we need to go back in time.
Because you see, to understand an explosion, you first have to understand all the ingredients that had been simmering just under the surface for centuries. And in France, this was called the Old Regime.
So, the Old Regime, that was the name for the whole social and political setup in France before the Revolution. The best way to think about it is like a really rigid pyramid, a system of hierarchy and privilege that hadn't changed much since the Middle Ages.
French society was divided up into three distinct classes, or estates. At the very top, you had the first estate, that's the clergy. Right below them, the second estate, the nobility. And the third estate, well, that was quite literally everybody else.
Now this is where things get really wild. Look at the numbers here. The clergy and the nobility, together, made up just 3% of the entire population. The third estate, we're talking peasants, merchants, lawyers, city workers, they were the other 97%.
And this cartoon from the time, it just nails the relationship. The nobleman is the spider, just sitting there, and the peasant is the fly caught in his web. The peasant brings everything, food, money, labor, while the nobleman just accepts it all, not even bothering to look at him.
But you want to know what the real kicker was? The taxes. I mean, just look at this chart. The entire financial weight of running the country, the army, the government, the king's fancy court, it all fell 100% on the third estate. The other two, the privileged estates, paid almost nothing.
And boy did the kingdom need money, badly. After years of fighting wars, including helping out the American Revolution, France was stuck with a mind-boggling debt of over 3 billion livres. The royal treasury was basically empty.
So let's connect the dots here. The government is bankrupt, and at the exact same time, the people are starving. A series of bad harvests meant there wasn't enough grain, so the price of bread, the one food that 97% of the people relied on, just skyrocketed. This wasn't just politics, it was about survival.
But into this perfect storm of inequality and desperation, a powerful new ingredient got thrown into the mix: ideas. This was the Age of Enlightenment, and it was about to change how people saw the world. You had these incredible thinkers, people like Rousseau and Montesquieu, who started asking some really dangerous questions. They challenged the whole idea that kings had a God-given right to rule. They argued for a society based on logic and equality, where what mattered was your talent, not what family you were born into.
And this quote from Georges Danton, a guy who would become a key leader in the revolution, just perfectly captures that frustration. Here he is, educated and talented, but the system had no place for him because he wasn't a noble. You can just feel the anger of a whole generation in those words.
All right, so we've got the frustration, we've got the ideas. Now let's see how it all finally boiled over, moving from words into action.
And when it happens in 1789, it happens fast. I mean, look at this timeline. In May, the king calls a big meeting to try and fix the money problems. By June, the third estate is just broken away entirely. By July, the Bastille is in flames, and by August, the entire feudal system is gone. It was a complete political earthquake. The real breaking point came at that big meeting, the Estates General. For centuries, the voting system was rigged. Each estate got one vote, which meant the clergy and nobles could always team up and outvote the third estate 2-1. The third estate demanded a simple change, voting by head. One person, one vote. The king said no.
So what did they do? They walked out.
The representatives of the Third Estate found a nearby indoor tennis court, and right there, they took this incredible, solemn oath. They declared that they were the real National Assembly, and they swore they would not stop meeting until they had written a brand new constitution for France. This was a truly revolutionary moment.
And with that one oath, they started the enormous task of tearing down the old world and building a new one from scratch, completely rewriting the rules of French society.
And I mean, the change was total. Look at the before and after. They went from an absolute monarchy, where the king had all the power, to a constitutional one, where his power was limited. From a society where your birth decided everything, to one based on merit. And from a system based on privilege for the few, to a new system of rights for everyone.
Here's a quick look at the new system they came up with in their 1791 Constitution. You can see power is separated. You have a National Assembly elected by citizens to make laws. The king is still there as the executive, but he has to follow the law. And you have judges, also elected, to interpret the law. This was a radical rethinking of government.
But at the end of the day, the impact went way beyond France. The revolution pushed for these huge ideas that would become the building blocks for modern democracies all over the world: liberty, equality, and the basic rights of every single person.
Which leaves us with a massive question, one that's just as powerful today as it was in 1789. It's the core problem of any revolution, and it asks, if a system is just fundamentally broken, completely unfair, at what point do people have the right, or maybe even the duty, to tear it all down and start over?